Cents Per Mile, featuring Charles Gracie and Paul Gibson, with loads of recruiting and marketing experience and backed by the largest driver audience in the world. We deliver carriers the driver perspective, find solutions, and help make sense make sense.
Thank you for tuning in to Cents Per Mile. I'm your host, Charles Gracie.
And I'm your co-host, Paul Gibson. What are we talking about today, Charles?
Red, white, and road worn.
Yeah? What?
It's a salute to today's drivers. You know, they're out there. It's, coming off 4th of July week, and it's one of those things where we want to be patriotic. We want to celebrate today's drivers, but we can't do so without acknowledging that, it's not always rainbows, unicorns, and glitter. Sometimes it is just simply trucking.
That makes me just kind of wonder about your trucking experience, Charles. I've wondered, because you say that a lot. You're always like, oh, it's not always like, puppies, unicorns, rainbows, and glitter. But does that mean that that kind of means that sometimes it was? Tell me about that. Tell me about that. Tell me about the glitter, Charles. No, just kidding. Just kidding. But
sometimes things sparkle, and we're going to have a guest on that's going to talk about that.
Wow. Okay, I'm pretty pumped. So you should stick around. But before that, we got to do the thing as we always do. We are on Amazon Music, Apple Music. We're everywhere that you get your podcasts, YouTube, Spotify. So if you could subscribe, rate, and it helps push us out there a little bit more and gets us more momentum. So that way we can do cooler stuff.
But you can also go to centspermilepodcast.com. You can suggest a topic to be a guest or even to become a sponsor.
Sponsor? Speaking of sponsors, who's our sponsor today, Charles?
MyCarrierPortal. Trusted by brokers, preferred by carriers, Descartes MyCarrierPortal is the industry's #1 onboarding and fraud prevention platform. Less friction, more trust, faster onboarding. That's Descartes MyCarrierPortal. Check them out at mycarrierportal.com.
All right, and it's time to get to the news.
So for the news, we're checking out CDLLife.com, where they have all the top stories, the top news, and anything and everything trucking. For today's article, we have fuel costs down, but trucking severely squeezed by low rates and mounting operational costs, according to Atari. So on this article, they go in that the American Transportation Research Institute report released that Tuesday paints a grim picture for trucking profitability amid the ongoing freight recession. On July 1st, 2025, Atari released the annual report looking at the data from 2024 and key indicators from early 2025. The report found the overall per mile operating cost decreased by 0.4% from 2023 to a $2.2 per mile in 2024, thanks to the 7-cent decline in fuel costs. However, when lower fuel costs are excluded, the marginal cost rose from 3.6% to $1.7 per mile, the highest cost ever recorded by Atari for non-fuel operating costs.
Wow. That's, normally it's been like supply chain news that's been terrible recently. This is just operating terrible news.
Yeah, well, they go on to talk about carrier profitability suffered across all industry sectors under these pressures. As to finding, any details, the average operating margins were below 2% in every sector aside LTL. The truckload sector had an average operating margin of, 2.3%. Minus 2.3% to actually be exact.
So everybody's having a bad time. That's supposed to make it better.
Not everyone.
Okay.
Our next article is a win for trucking. So where you might be broke, we're getting wins. Hey. You could be broke and celebrate the wins.
You could be broker.
No, well, trucking had a couple wins.
But did you see what I did there?
Yeah, I did. First off, a huge shout out to the Warner verdict. That was something that trucking needed because these nuclear verdicts are bankrupting companies across the board in a market where margins are already tighter. But if that wasn't enough of a win, the same week that happened, we had US DOT unveil a blockbuster pro trucker package that promises to kill speed limiter mandates, expand truck parking, and much more.
Okay.
I know, right?
I'm skeptical. I'm nothing but skeptical.
All right. So Friday, June 27th, Duffy publicly debuted the Pro Trucker Package, consisting of regulatory changes, initiatives designed to improve the lives of America's truck drivers. In this package, they also kind of issued a response alongside of it about the mandated enforcement of the English language requirements for truck drivers. But in the package, the wins are expansions on truck parking to improve safety. And they've already seen some of the investment come out of Florida right off the bat. So they're investing in capacity. They have $275 million in grant funding to expand truck parking availability. Notably, Florida will sign a $180 million grant in the coming weeks to address the unmet truck parking demand along the I-4 corridor. It's affirming that there's a national priority to this. It's been a conversation. Now we're seeing money allocated to it. What was kind of crazy in that little subsection talking about parking is when you talk about $275 million in grant money, that project will add about 917 truck parking spaces.
Wow. Yeah, I mean, 11.
So when you do the math there, you're like, wow, how much does it cost to make a parking lot?
Yeah, I mean, well, it's a government parking lot. And the ratio is 11 to 1, right? So like 900 and that's going to offset it. That's going to Yep. But
if that wasn't enough, in there was regulatory relief as well. The withdrawal, we have killed the speed limiter rulemaking.
Yeah,
that is dead. It's not happening. That is a win.
I'm here for that.
And then there's the deregulatory initiative. They're slashing red tape, eliminating the burdensome regulations that are generating nearly 25,000 unnecessary violations alone in 2024. So they're going to eliminate 1,800 words from the federal regulations. Who can't get behind less regulations?
Yeah. Hey, but for the most part, yeah. Depends on who the regulation benefits.
But here's where it takes a turn.
For sure.
ELD exemption maintained. The secretary is committed to not extending the electronic login device mandate to pre-2000 model year trucks. That's a win.
But 25 years does make it a classic.
This is true, and we'll have someone on later that can speak to those. Works on them all the time.
Yep, all those not working trucks at the truck shows.
But
not for hire.
Here's what I find unique, and this is where I can really get behind it. They're listening. Anyone that doesn't think that, Duffy is listening, he even said, I hear you. I might not be able to respond, but I hear you. And what is one of the topics we've talked about in trucking a lot lately? Double brokering. So they are really committed to renewing a focus on combating the unlawful double brokering practice. And no one likes double broker Larry from, Scandinavia. So I'm all here for it.
Yep. So full disclosure, I actually love all of this for the most part.
Wait, what? Can you repeat that again?
I actually love all of it for the most part. But my one thing that I'm worried about is it's a plan. I guess it's like a once bitten, twice shy kind of thing. I'm just like, are they going to actually roll it out though? What's it look like in practice?
But if that wasn't enough,
that's what I need.
They're also refreshing the driver resources webpage. They're looking into the data queue. They're not happy with people feeling like, hey, when you go to challenge a data queue, it goes back to the issuing agency. So are they really ever going to sit there and say, oh, yeah, my officer was wrong? No. And so drivers fail to challenge it anymore because they feel like it's falling on deaf ears. So it's kind of nice to know that they're going to put a system in place or looking to putting a system that kind of has someone that's not biased to admitting fault.
No, and
drivers might actually have an out when they didn't do something wrong and it was just a bad judgment call. And hey, listen, people have bad days. I make bad calls.
Mm-hmm.
So do the officers. We're human. We all make mistakes. Why should the drivers have something that goes to the same agency that issued the violation in the first place?
Oh no, and like I said, I actually like a lot of this, and I hope the rollout is great. You know, but you know it's still not in there?
Pay your drivers.
Bathroom access.
The fact that we need bathroom access
Right.
in a bill is crazy to me.
And then like there's a few things, and like obviously, you know, like you got to take what you can get, but it's just insane that like, yeah, it's nuts. But I do love this. I just hope that it all, you know, in practice works.
Absolutely. So I'm looking forward to it. I'm looking forward to seeing where it goes, but I think it's a step in the right direction. We have an administration, no matter how you feel about the current administration, we have an administration that has actually prioritized some of the conversations that have been taking place and stopping just short of the finish line, and have committed to actually getting it across the finish line in one shape or fashion. And who can't get behind a little support for trucking?
I will support Duffy for sure.
All right. But you know what else we got to do now?
Tenstreet. We got to go behind the desk.
So now it's time to go behind the desk with Tenstreet, and we got Tom Resz with us. How's it going today, brother?
Good, Charles. How are you doing, sir?
Living the dream one day at a time. We're talking about, you know, trucking wins and losses in the news. And now we're going to switch gears and have a conversation with Tenstreet. And today's topic is red, white, and road worn. You know, today's drivers, they're here. There's good days, there's bad days, but Tenstreet, I'm sure, can speak to what they're seeing on that front.
Yeah, we're seeing. Obviously, we talked a little bit about some of the pressures in the spot market could be better, but it seems like it's a slow climb out right now. We're seeing some good activity on the advertising side. A general overall improvement, but nothing like ground shaking or, hey, everything's better tomorrow, like we would wish it to be.
What? That doesn't check out. I shook my magic 8 ball and it says tomorrow's going to be a better day.
Yeah. I think we're all trying to do a little bit of that right now.
With everything that you're seeing on that front, and maybe you're seeing some of the same stuff I am, are you seeing an increase in the hiring and the need to hire right now, or are you seeing kind of just people keeping up with turnover?
Yeah, there is some need for hiring. I've talked to a lot of clients fairly recently that are looking for new drivers. I've got some clients in the ports that are aggressively hiring right now, trying to keep up with demand. So, you know, that's typically where we see it first, is a growth in the port section, but my other clients too. But then there's some segments that haven't hired for a long time and really just don't need any drivers. There's a little bit of turnover, but we're also seeing an increase, and we've seen this past tense for a bit, but we're seeing an increase in the number of unqualified drivers applying. As that's a regular complaint I get, that the driver has too many issues with his MVR to be brought on board, that sort of stuff. But that is it
just the MVR?
I mean, it's mostly
number of jobs.
That could be it too. I'm seeing a lot of carriers now that are way pickier than they were back in 2023 about the number of jobs they've had in the last 5 years. And when I talk to them, I try to encourage them and say, look, if they had a steady history in the past, and in the last 2 to 3 years it's been a little unsteady, you should still consider giving them a chance, because these drivers are just trying to find a company that will give them miles right now. You know what I mean?
They're trying to survive.
Yeah. I mean, if you're getting 2,000 miles a week, you know, who wouldn't look at that point? You know what I mean?
Yeah, 70 cents at 2,000 miles a week versus 55 cents and getting 3,000. There's a big difference there in what you're going to make.
Yeah. And these drivers, they're just trying to feed their families for the most part. So we're seeing some interesting stuff. Yeah, absolutely.
Well, Tom Resz with Tenstreet from Behind the Desk. Appreciate you both.
Thank you. Appreciate you having me.
Trusted by brokers and preferred by carriers. Descartes MyCarrierPortal is the industry's most reliable onboarding and fraud prevention platform. Carriers save time and win more freight, while brokers gain confidence through verified partners. Experience greater discoverability in your customer's carrier network with our easy-to-use system. Less friction, more trust, faster onboarding. That's Descartes MyCarrierPortal.
All right, it's time for Make Sense, Makes Sense. It's our premiere portion of the show, and we're talking red, white, and road worn, a driver's 4th of July patriotic tribute to the men and women hauling freedom, plus, keeping America moving forward. But we can't have that conversation without having some great guests come in to weigh in. So we got Chris Miles from Sonepar and Evan Steger from Time to Shine. Welcome to the show, guys.
Hey, thanks for
having me.
So we want to highlight different segments of the industry right now. When we're talking, America, trucking, the backbone of America, keeping things moving forward, there's different sides of this, and you guys come from different sides of it than what I see traditionally. So I'd love to get your insights on, does trucking still have the same appeal that it always had, or do we have to look a little deeper today?
Interesting enough, I just talked to a gentleman that transitioned out of the military in 2019, went to school for computer science, has a 4-year degree, and now he's driving for us up in the Killeen, Texas area. And I asked him why he chose that over anything else. He chose it for stability. He knows when he's in. He knows when he's out. Predictability. He's able to see his kids every single day, because our roles are Monday through Friday, no weekends. And so he chose that family life and that career. And then as he looks at it with the opportunity that we have, he knows he's coming on board as a driver, but then he wants to move up to a dispatcher. He wants to be the transportation manager, transportation supervisor. So he sees a career that he actually wants to do. When he pursued that degree, he didn't realize that he was going to be in a cubicle every day for the rest of his life. So he chose that open road. He chose that freedom to be able to be out and actually seeing different things every single day. And I think a lot of veterans find themselves in that. I did. I was working. I was sitting in a cubicle every single day, and I was just sitting there like, I can't do this. So to be able to work for Sonepar, to be able to be in the veteran military space, out engaging our veterans and military spouses, it's just a tremendous honor for me to be able to actually go out there and be able to take and do that engagement and be able to take and move our service members and military community into our logistics and warehouse roles.
So it's unique that from your perspective, you're seeing people transition into trucking. They're more comfortable. It's more stable. Obviously, it's with the right company. Evan, from the side of things that you're on, you're seeing the people that are out there on the road doing the job. Some of them are multi-generational. Are they still feeling that same sense of freedom as Chris described?
Yeah, so I get to see a lot of different sides of the industry because I have the metal polishing shop. So I get to see the guys that have been trucking for a long time or the guys that just got into it. So I get to see them on a regular basis. For them, if you're coming to me, my polishing service is a luxury. So those guys are enjoying what they do because they're coming into me to get shined up, to keep their ride looking nice. And then when I'm at the shows, a lot of times I'm running the show or I'm selling product at the show because we have our detailing product company. So I get to see those guys too that are coming in just buying product to maintain their rides. But also on the show running side, I get to see the guys that are just coming in for a good time. They need a weekend off. They want to come in for a good show. And some of those guys, I hear different stories, right? Here in my shop, everybody's having a good time because they're getting polished up. They're happy to get shined up and go down the road. They're happy with what they got. But at the shows, I hear a little bit of everything. Some of these old military guys are just ready to retire, ready to get out because it isn't the same as it used to be. But other guys, they're just happy. They're living it out. They're enjoying the freedom of what it is. And some guys just feel tethered to that E-log. And honestly, I know guys making more money on the E-log than they did on paper logs and they're home more. So the way they look at it, the perspective in which they look at it, sometimes is what changes their demeanor and the way they think of things. But then when we get to the higher end show level with like the elite guys that are building full show trucks, those guys, there's quite a few of them that are actually military members that just work their way up the trucking community from nothing to full blown something. And those guys are just living the best of their life. It seems like they may hide it very well, but they're living it up.
Interesting follow-up there would be, you'd imagine with the margins being so tight right now, you'd probably see less, or maybe I'm wrong, you see the same amount of people going out there detailing their trucks out there at the truck shows. Are you seeing a sway in that at all with the market the way it is?
With the market the way it is, the beautiful thing for me is selling the detailing products. I see both sides. So once in a while, I'll see less on my polishing side. Like people come to me less to get the work done and they'll buy the products themselves to do it themselves. And then other times I'll see guys bring it to me because they're doing well and they want me to do it so that they don't have to do it because it's a dirty job, right? So then our product sales slow down a little bit because they're having me do it instead of the other way. So for me, it fluctuates both ways. I've got the beauty of both worlds, right? But you definitely see it swing both ways sometimes.
I gotcha. So, Chris, a follow up for you on this was, y- are you seeing a shift in the mindset of who we're bringing into the industry? Are we explaining it better? Maybe the industry has shifted in how we describe the job because it has changed. Or are we still status quo and just because people are near capacity, we're just being more
I think
selective?
for this generation coming up, you have to show them it's just not a job. You actually have to show them that there's a career out there for them. That way they can have that predictability. They can take and grow inside that organization, and they can actually see and understand what the market is. Because if you just come in as, just say an example, a driver, and you don't understand what the market is, the segment of the market that's picking up. Like for us, we went from 300 locations to 570. So that's showing all of our people that are driving for us right now that, hey, we're growing, there's more market, there's more demand, so there's more predictability. That predictability gives that driver the confidence to be able to take and stay on board, go buy a house, start growing their family, and then building out. And that's a great thing about America, is you have that opportunity to take and be in that job, continue to take and grow, and can take and develop yourself.
Okay. And Evan, with what you're doing out there, and you get to talk to a lot of different drivers, much like Chris, are you seeing a shift in the pride that they're taking in the job, or are you seeing that because they're getting beat down over these past couple of years, you're starting to see people kind of relax on that a little bit? Because it was at one point one of those things where I'm proud to be a trucker.
I will say I can agree with that statement to some fold, but I will say when times get tough in the trucking industry is when I see the guys kind of pull together a little more. And pulling together means the shows kind of get bigger. Um, I will say over the last few years, there's more shows. You can almost find a truck show every weekend somewhere. If you go to Chris Fifey's truck show list, truckshowlist.com, you can find a truck show somewhere, everywhere in the country, almost every weekend from spring until fall. And if you go to look at those truck shows, there's at least 100 to 200 to 300 to some are 700 trucks at a show. And those big shows are still doing well. They're still raising money, even though the market's not great. Even myself, my own personal charity that I have that we donate all the money to wounded veterans, um, we still did the same amount of money this year as we have in the past years, considering that the market was low. So I think everybody's just kind of tightening their belt loops a little bit and just hunkering down to make sure they get through it. But I still see a lot of pride in the rides. I don't see too many people not doing their normal washes, not doing the normal polishing and stuff like that they do. Everybody's still kind of rallying around, and I don't know. I don't get to see the rough side of the industry too well. Like I said, I'm kind of in the luxury side where people don't need me. They kind of just want me. So I get to see the guys that actually want to take pride in theirs, and I don't deal with guys that don't take pride in their stuff too often, other than a few of the truck shows we do.
Nice. So, Chris, if you had to give advice to anyone listening out there on the things that they should be paying attention to be successful with this shift in mindset, what would be the number one thing that you'd want to highlight?
The first thing I would tell you is, understand where we're at. We're one of the only few countries where we have the freedom and we have a chance to be better every single day. So if you're in a position you don't like the position, interesting enough that we're talking about other moving to other carriers and people being with 3 or 4 different carriers within 5 years, because we have those options as people. It's not a contract with the military. You go out there and you find that company, you find you know what you're comfortable with and what you and your family need. The biggest thing I would tell people inside this market is to be able to take and turn around, actually start looking at those companies. Go do some AI searches. Who are the top companies that drive for? Who are the companies that have the best benefits? Utilize AI to your advantage. It's sitting out there, but at the same time, also use AI to take and revamp yourself and revamp your skills. Because, my father in law, he was a truck driver, for over 40 years. And now he's rebranching, he's in his mid 60s and he's now branching into tech. So keep in mind, what is that second thing you're going to do once you walk away? And he did everything from dispatcher to driver trainer, and loved his career with Walmart. But when it was over,
Yeah.
so he's just looking at it now. And he came to me, funny enough, Charles, he came to me, he's like, hey, as I'm transitioning out of this career, what do I do next? And, so I started turning around, show them how to take and branch out into other areas, because, it's
So,
out
so do you see like that kind of approach with people, educating them, not only educating them, showing them the pathways and having those conversations? You see that as kind of the next phase of what proper recruiting and proper structure, just doing good business.
Yeah, absolutely. And I go to a ton of, I went to like 108 career events last year, and you're out there at their career events and you see some of the great companies out there, and I'll give Werner some credit as far as their recruiting. They're out there and I see Alec on the road and he's actually having true conversations with people on the ground, explaining to them what the career is, paying salary, everything straightforward. And with this generation, that's the biggest thing, is tell them what the role is, tell them what the responsibilities are, and tell them what the pay is up front. The more genuine you are and the more that you tell everything up front, that's going to get you further in the process and actually have happy employees working for your organization. If you're trying to hide those things and then get down the road and they find out it's not what they thought it was, that's when you'll have a lot of disappointed people. And then that's when you'll see those individuals jumping company to company.
No, that's great. And Evan, one of the reasons I wanted to have you here, I had my own selfish reason, is I believe the approach here for making trucking attractive to people coming in, but also retaining your talent, is not only having those pathways like Chris mentioned and laying everything out, expectations, being transparent, but I also think that there's a sense of pride that a lot of carriers have lost over the years. Like, some do it really well. You have some carriers that they have those show trucks, they incorporate their drivers, they let them flex and show off. And I think that enhances that sense of pride and that investment from a driver into a company that they're with. What's your views on that?
I will agree with that 100%. Look at somebody like Truck Show Joe working down at Southern. He's taking trucks out that you can actually get hired on to drive. It's not just his show truck that he's taken to the shows. It's a truck that he's going to put somebody in at some point. That's how he does his recruiting, is he takes one of the trucks that you're literally going to get to drive to a show. And I see a lot of guys do that. Up here, we have some fleets that we polish. Two of my big fleets in our local area up here. If you're willing to take care of your truck, you can come by my shop anytime and get polished for free. And I send the invoice to the owner. The owner will let you get your truck polished here twice a year for free if you're willing to maintain it outside of that. So there's a lot of companies out there like that are still doing stuff. And for the guys that think that camaraderie isn't there, I tell them, get out to a truck show. Find a truck show to go to. Find a trade show to go to, and go out and just meet with some other truckers, and you're going to see they're a lot nicer. That the stigmatism around it isn't really there, other than people talking about it being there. I get to see such a good side of it from the truck shows. Let's just use Star Stripes and White Lines truck show down in Atlanta, for example. Last year, it was a fully judged show on the invited side for the national championship, and every one of those competitors left there friends with each other. They all exchanged phone numbers and they all keep in contact with each other. And these guys were guys that were competing against each other on a white glove level. And the guys on the Washington Park side that weren't competing for anything other than to be there and have fun, a lot of those guys were just hanging out, having a good time, talking with everybody, looking at the show trucks, looking at the work trucks. Like, everybody was just having a good time. And that's the side that I get to see on a regular basis, is that these guys, unless you're on Facebook or Instagram and reading the trash that's in the comments, that to me doesn't really exist outside of the world I live in.
No, that was awesome. Yeah, I appreciate you guys for coming on Cents Per Mile. It's always a good conversation, but I think, Paul, the general census around here is have pathways, set proper expectations, have a good company culture, and also don't be afraid to go out there and flex your fleet a little bit. Let drivers have some pride in their ride.
For sure. Yeah, I mean, I think that's one of those things that, like, I don't know, you get to a point to where, like, everybody's got, I get fuel economy and stuff, and everybody's got, a slip nose, like 579, etc. And it's just like, at some point, like, trucks got kind of not fun, though, as part of the whole thing, but I also get the margins. But yeah.
Well, that's it for Cents Per Mile today. I'm your host, Charles Gracie.
And I'm your co-host, Paul Gibson. See you next time.